You're throwing away your emergency stockpile every single day. That chicken carcass you tossed last night, medical grade bone broth that stores for months, those coffee grounds in your trash, water purification system sitting right there. We've been conditioned to see food scraps as garbage, but preppers and off-grid communities have known the truth for decades. Your kitchen waste is a survival cache in disguise. Today, I'm showing you 25 things you're currently trashing that could legitimately save your life when systems fail. And number 11 will completely change how you see one of your favorite snacks. Let's get started. Number 1, eggshells as calcium supplements and water purifiers. Your body needs calcium to function, and in a survival situation, you won't have access to dairy or supplements. Eggshells are 95% calcium carbonate, the exact compound in those expensive supplements you buy. Rinse them, bake at 200 degrees Fahrenheit for 10 minutes to sterilize, then grind into powder. Half a teaspoon gives you your daily calcium. But here's the part nobody talks about. Crushed eggshells also bind to heavy metals and impurities in water. Add a tablespoon of eggshell powder to questionable water, let it settle for an hour, and you've got a primitive filtration system. Indigenous communities have used this method for centuries. Number 2, citrus peels as fire starters and antiseptics. Orange and lemon peels contain limonene, an oil so flammable it'll ignite even when the peel is slightly damp. Dry your peels completely, and they become better fire starters than most commercial options because they burn hot and slow. Squeeze fresh peel near a flame and watch it actually create a burst of fire from the oil spray. For medical use, that same limonene is a powerful antiseptic. Boil citrus peels for 15 minutes, strain the liquid, and you've got a disinfectant wash for minor wounds. The pectin in the peels also becomes a natural pectin source for preserving other foods without store-bought supplies. Number 3, vegetable scraps as perpetual food sources. This isn't about regrowing green onions in a cup. Everyone knows that trick. I'm talking about survival vegetables that actually produce meaningful calories. Romaine lettuce, stumps placed in shallow water, will regenerate a full head in 3 weeks. A single celery base gives you constant harvests if you keep cutting the outer stalks. Potato peels with eyes can be planted in dirt, even poor dirt, and produce multiple pounds of potatoes from one scrap. In a real scarcity situation, these aren't cute gardening projects. They're calorie multiplication systems that cost nothing. You're creating food from literal trash. Number 4, bacon grease as preservation medium and fuel. Your ancestors survived winters by packing food in rendered fat. Bacon grease, when properly rendered and strained, stays shelf-stable for months without refrigeration and creates an anaerobic seal that prevents bacterial growth. Cooked vegetables or meat submerged in solid bacon fat become preserved through a process called confit. The grease itself is also pure energy, nearly 900 calories per 100 grams, which matters desperately when food is scarce. And because it's fat, your body actually absorbs nutrients better when you cook with it. In an extended emergency, this saved grease becomes currency-level valuable. Number 5, coffee grounds for pest control and soil enhancement. Used coffee grounds repel slugs, snails, ants, and even cats because of their acidity and caffeine content, which is toxic to many insects. Scatter them around a survival garden and you've got a pesticide that costs nothing. But the real intelligence is in composting them. Coffee grounds are nitrogen-rich, and when you're trying to grow food in a crisis, nitrogen is what turns struggling plants into productive ones. Mix grounds directly into soil, and you're essentially making fertilizer from trash. They also absorb odors, so in a sanitation-compromised situation, dried coffee grounds scattered around waste areas reduce smell and flies. Number 6, onion skins as natural dye in medicine. Onion skins produce a permanent, color-fast brown to orange dye that bonds to fabric without mordants or chemicals. In a collapse scenario where you need to repair or identify clothing, or even create camouflage patterns, this matters more than you think. But here's the medical angle. Onion skin tea is loaded with quercetin, a powerful anti-inflammatory and antioxidant. Boil a handful of dry skins in water for 20 minutes, and you've got a remedy for respiratory issues and immune support. Medieval Europeans used this exact preparation during plague outbreaks. The wisdom didn't come from nowhere. Number 7, chicken bones as medical-grade broth. This is the one that changes everything. Real bone broth, the kind you simmer for 24 hours, isn't food, it's medicine. When you slow cook bones with a splash of vinegar, you extract collagen, gelatin, glucosamine, calcium, and amino acids that support gut health, joint function, and immune response. In survival medicine, bone broth has been used to treat everything from dysentery to malnutrition because it's one of the most bioavailable forms of nutrition that exists. A properly made broth gels. When cold, that's how you know you've extracted the good stuff. And it pressure cans it safely, giving you shelf-stable nutrition for years. You're throwing away pharmaceutical-grade nutrition every time you trash a carcass. Number 8. Banana peels as water purification. Researchers discovered that banana peels can remove heavy metals and bacteria from contaminated water through a process called biosorption. The proteins and carbohydrates in the peel bind to toxins. Dry the peels completely, grind them into a coarse powder, and use them as a filter medium by letting water pass through or sit with the powder for several hours. This isn't drinkable level purification on its own, you'd still want to boil, but it's a pre-filtration step that removes contaminants boiling won't touch. In areas with industrial runoff or heavy metal contamination, this technique has been used successfully in developing nations. Number 9. Apple cores and peels as vinegar. Raw apple scraps plus water plus thyme equals vinegar. That's it. Fill a jar with cores and peels, cover with water and a bit of sugar, cover with cloth, and let it ferment for 4 to 6 weeks. You get acetic acid, the same stuff in store-bought vinegar, which is crucial for food preservation, disinfection, and pH balancing. Vinegar prevents botulism in canned foods, treats fungal infections, and can even be used to clean wounds in emergencies. You're creating a shelf-stable survival compound from something you currently put in the garbage. And once you have vinegar, you can make more vinegar indefinitely using the mother culture that forms. Number 10. Cheese rinds as flavor extraction and stock base. Hard cheese rinds from Parmesan, Romano, or aged cheeses are concentrated umami bombs. Toss them into water and simmer, and you extract glutamates that make even bland survival food palatable. Palatability isn't trivial in a crisis. When people stop eating because food tastes awful, malnutrition follows. These rinds also contain beneficial molds and bacteria that can be used to culture other foods. And here's the part most people miss. The wax coating on some cheese rinds is food grade and can be repurposed as a waterproof sealant or candle making material. Nothing gets wasted. Number 11. Pickle juice as electrolyte solution and preservative. Pickle brine is vinegar, salt, and spices, the exact formula for quick pickling other vegetables. You can reuse it multiple times to preserve cucumbers, onions, peppers, whatever you have. In a survival context, this extends food life without refrigeration. But the real trick is electrolyte replacement. Pickle juice has sodium, potassium, and magnesium in ratios that actually work for rehydration. Athletes have used it for cramping for years because it works faster than water. In a heat emergency or after illness causes fluid loss, this trash-bound liquid becomes medical intervention. Number 12. Nutshells as activated carbon. Walnut, pecan, and almond shells can be turned into activated carbon through a process called pyrolysis, heating them in a low oxygen environment. The result is a porous material that absorbs toxins, chemicals, and impurities. You can make a rudimentary version by charring shells completely in a fire, then crushing them into powder. This char can be added to questionable water or used in primitive filtration systems. It's the same principle behind expensive Brita filters, just lower tech. In a contamination scenario, this knowledge could mean the difference between safe and unsafe water. Number 13. Corn cobs as insulation and fuel. Dried corn cobs burn slow and hot, hotter than wood of similar size, because of their dense cellulose structure. Pioneer communities used them as primary cooking fuel because they were abundant and efficient. But they're also incredible insulators. Broken down cob material has been used for centuries in wall insulation and bedding because it traps air and resists moisture. In a shelter scenario where you need to retain heat without modern materials, this matters enormously. You're looking at a multi-purpose survival resource that most people consider barnyard waste. Number 14. Meat trimmings as tallow and pemmican base. Fat trimmings you cut off meat can be rendered into tallow, which is shelf-stable for years and serves as cooking fat, candle material, soap base, and leather conditioner. Heat the trimmings low and slow, strain out the solids, and you're left with pure fat. Mix rendered tallow with dried, pulverized meat and berries, and you've got pemmican, the ultimate survival food that can last decades. Native Americans survived entire winters on this because it's calorie-dense, portable, and doesn't spoil. You're creating century-old survival technology from modern food waste. Number 15. Herb stems as medicinal teas and smoking blends. You use the leaves and throw away the stems, but those stems contain many of the same volatile oils and medicinal compounds. Cilantro stems have the same heavy metal chelating properties as the leaves. Parsley stems contain apigenin, an anti-inflammatory. Dry them, and you've got tea bases that provide real medicinal benefit. In some cases, the stems are actually more concentrated in certain compounds. Because the plant stores them there, you can also use woody herb stems like rosemary and thyme as smoking materials for preserving meat, adding another preservation method to your arsenal. Number 16. Lemon seeds as indoor pest repellent and air freshener. Those seeds you spit out while eating citrus, they contain limonene oil in concentrated forms that insects absolutely hate. Dry them out, crush them lightly, and scatter them in cupboards, windowsills, or anywhere you're seeing ants, fruit flies, or pantry moths. The scent is pleasant to humans, but overwhelming to bugs, and it works for weeks. But here's the clever part. You can also plant these seeds in small pots for ornamental lemon trees that'll actually produce fruit in a few years, if you're patient. Even before fruiting, the leaves themselves can be used in teas or cooking for that bright citrus flavor. You're getting pest control, air freshening, and potentially years of free lemons from something that normally goes straight into the trash. Number 17. Avocado pits as natural fabric dye and smoothie booster. Avocado pits produce a gorgeous pink to coral dye that's been used by textile artists for years, but almost nobody outside that community knows about it. Chop the pit, simmer it in water for an hour, you've got a permanent natural dye for fabric or even Easter eggs. The color is surprisingly vibrant and doesn't require any chemical fixatives. But what's really interesting is that the pit is edible and packed with antioxidants, more than the flesh itself. You need to dry it completely, then grate or blend it into powder because it's incredibly hard. Add half a teaspoon to smoothies, and you're getting soluble fiber and polyphenols that support heart health. It tastes slightly bitter, so you'd want to mask it with fruit, but nutritionally it's a powerhouse you're literally throwing away. Number 18. Watermelon rinds as pickles and smoothie thickener. The white part of watermelon rind between the flesh and outer skin is completely edible and actually more nutritious than the pink part, loaded with citrulline, an amino acid that improves circulation and exercise performance. Cut off the tough green exterior, cube the white part, and pickle it in vinegar with spices. It tastes remarkably similar to cucumber pickles and has been a southern delicacy for generations. You can also freeze chunks of rind and blend them into smoothies, where they add thickness and hydration without any flavor. You're essentially getting two foods from one purchase. Most people throw away roughly 35% of a watermelon's edible weight, which is insane when you realize what you're missing. Number 19. Parmesan cheese, wax coating as candle material, and fire starter. That red or black wax coating on the outside of whole Parmesan wheels is food-grade wax, completely clean and safe. Most people don't buy whole wheels, but if you do, save that wax. Melt it down and you've got perfect material for making candles, sealing jars, or waterproofing small items like matchboxes. It burns cleanly and has no weird smell. You can also use small pieces as fire starters for camping or fireplaces, since wax catches flame easily and burns long enough to ignite wood. It's essentially free crafting and utility material that you'd otherwise toss. Restaurants that use whole wheels usually throw away pounds of this stuff monthly. Number 20. Pineapple cores as meat tenderizer and digestive aid. Pineapple cores contain bromelain, an enzyme that breaks down protein, which is why pineapple makes your mouth tingle if you eat too much. That same enzyme will tenderize tough cuts of meat in minutes. Blend or finely chop the core, rub it on cheap, tough meat, let it sit for 20 to 30 minutes, and you've transformed it into something actually pleasant to eat. This saves money by letting you buy cheaper cuts. But bromelain is also a powerful digestive enzyme, which is why pineapple is recommended after big meals. You can dry the cores, grind them into powder, and take it as a natural digestive supplement that reduces bloating and helps break down food. Supplement companies sell bromelain extract for $20 a bottle, and you're throwing away the exact same thing. Number 21, garlic and onion skins as natural antibiotics. The papery outer layers you peel off garlic and onions contain allicin and quercetin in concentrated forms. Both are powerful antimicrobial compounds that kill bacteria, fungi, and even some viruses. Steep these skins in hot water for 15 minutes and you've got a topical antiseptic wash that actually works. Studies have shown garlic extract kills antibiotic-resistant bacteria, and you're literally throwing away this capability. In a world where you can't get to a pharmacy, infected wounds become life-threatening fast. These skins also contain prebiotics that support gut health when consumed as tea. Store them dried in a jar, and you've got a medicine cabinet that costs nothing and lasts indefinitely. Number 22. Potato peels as burn treatment and starch source. Raw potato peels placed directly on minor burns provide immediate cooling relief and contain compounds that promote healing and reduce scarring. The starch creates a protective barrier, while the catechol enzyme helps damaged tissue regenerate. Medics in resource-poor areas have used this for decades because it genuinely works better than doing nothing. But here's the survival angle most people miss. Potato peels are loaded with starch that can be extracted and used as a thickening agent for soups, a binding agent for improvised foods, or even as an adhesive. Soak peels in water, Let the starch settle, pour off the water, and you're left with pure potato starch. That's a food extender that turns watery broths into filling meals. Number 23, celery leaves as salt, substitute, and diuretic. Everyone eats the stalks and tosses the leaves, but those leaves contain sodium compounds that give you salty flavor without actual salt, which matters when you're rationing or dealing with high blood pressure in a crisis. Dry the leaves and crumble them into any food for instant flavor enhancement. They're also a natural diuretic, meaning they help your body eliminate excess fluid, which is critical for treating edema or kidney issues when medical care isn't available. The leaves contain apigenin and luteolin, anti-inflammatory compounds that reduce swelling. In survival medicine, reducing inflammation often means the difference between recovery and deterioration. You're discarding pharmaceutical-grade plant compounds every time you prep celery. Number 24, bread crusts and stale bread as penicillin culture medium. This sounds insane until you understand the history. Before commercial antibiotics, people would deliberately culture mold on bread, then apply it to infections. Not all molds are penicillin producing, but some are, and stale bread creates the perfect growth environment. In an absolute worst case scenario where antibiotics don't exist and someone has a life-threatening infection, this knowledge has saved lives. You're essentially creating a primitive antibiotic laboratory from food waste. Beyond that, stale bread can be ground into breadcrumbs for extending meat dishes, turned into croutons that last months when dried properly, or rehydrated in broths to create calorie-dense meals from almost nothing. Bread never needs to be wasted. Number 25, fish bones and heads as calcium-rich fertilizer. If you eat fish, those bones and heads you're throwing out contain calcium, phosphorus, and nitrogen in ratios that make plants explode with growth. Bury them directly in garden soil and they break down into fertilizer that costs nothing but produces dramatically better yields. Indigenous communities around the world have done this for thousands of years because it works. The Pilgrims learned this from Native Americans, and it's literally why they survived. But here's the part that matters in survival. Fish bones can also be ground into bone meal and added to food as a calcium supplement, exactly like eggshells. In subsistence living, every mineral counts. You're throwing away the exact nutrients your body and your crops desperately need. Every single item on this list is something you've thrown away this month, probably this week. We've outsourced survival knowledge to systems that can fail, and when they do, the people who know how to see resources instead of garbage will be the ones who make it through. Start saving one thing from this list, just one. Learn it, practice it, and suddenly you're not just surviving, you're thriving on what everyone else calls trash. That shift in perspective, that's what separates preppers from victims when everything falls apart.